Um, just a thought. I don't disagree with the binary, and I don't disagree with Colin's comment about maybe yellow could mean something, but I do think you'll need to think about, are all auditors created equal?
Yeah,
In
that's a
other
good.
words, there's these deep reputations that are happening in the crypto industry over the last 3 years, and I suspect we could name the big auditors on one hand, or maybe a little more. I don't know, or maybe a little less. But I don't think everybody who says I had an audit and there's a new company is going to be the same, because you can certainly see. I think of this through game theory, and you could certainly see gaming somebody setting up a pretty sophisticated con where they're going to, do the rug pull, going to do the exit scam, going to exit with funds at some point, and they've put a sophisticated auditor. Now, maybe that auditor is, coming from somewhere we don't know. So anyway, be aware of that. That could be it could be a yellow. It could be maybe even a red. I don't know how we rate the auditors. So just want to put that in there. Others should say something.
Yeah, I would strongly agree with that, and I think in addition to the credibility of the auditors, I believe that us getting to actually review the audit to some extent has a lot of value, because just in my experience, I think few auditors sort of give a sign off where they're saying we believe this to be ironclad in its security. They're really more publishing a dispassionate view on these are the things that we identified as possible issues. Um, and so I think just having a bit more depth of understanding, but I would likewise say that applies to nearly all of these categories. Like even looking back at on this row at something like somebody having 3 years of staking experience, like that's fantastic. But I would want to, really understand what their track record is over that time period, because 3 years experience can either be a plus or a neutral or a negative, depending on how those 3 years went for their customers.
Yeah, so these are excellent points, and I'm glad that Michael just joined, because Michael actually posted something within the Discord. He posted a video that's very much in line with the comments that were just made. So, Michael, do you just want to quickly kind of go over what your overarching point was, and I can summarize it too. If that's easier, you just tell me. Yep. Yep. Just to quickly summarize, both James and Michael believe that we need to do further checking of the validity of the answers and effectively their expansiveness, rather than just taking them at face value. And would you guys agree with that summary? Awesome. So the way, this is one suggestion we have to approach, because exactly as Michael said, we're balancing getting this out quickly so people can start using some information, even though it might be imperfect, while also having the most comprehensive, in-depth analysis for each of these answers. This is the way I think we could move forward, is we keep on going through like we're doing, publish it, say very clearly at the top, these are initial results. They are going to be changed. We haven't finished our due diligence process, but we wanted to get something out there after initial look. And while we are doing that, in the process of getting that ready, of even publishing it initially, we have people going in and really digging deep and dissecting these answers. Potentially, it could even, those answers that we published initially could change prior to them even getting published, but much more likely they will change in the first couple of weeks after we publish it. And so that balances getting the information out there with large disclaimers, and also, you know, getting the most accurate information as quickly as possible. The alternative approach would be waiting until we can get the most comprehensive information and then publishing. And then the third alternative would be effectively publishing and not worrying about the more comprehensive information. If there's a fourth option, let me know. But what do you guys think about the first one? What do you think, James?
In my view, I would say that you know, I think in keeping with some of the communication that Superfizz has put out in recent past, really generally describing these staking services as sort of yellow at this point in time. You know, I think we're probably not going to be in a position to necessarily like strongly endorse or say any of these are fully vetted in the next like several weeks, just kind of given the time horizon. And so I think giving the general view that these are not yet vetted, but all of our discussion around them is available online, that's adequate. But what I would, you know, like to try to focus on is, you know, I think protecting the home staker, the end customer of these guys from major pitfalls should really be our primary focus. And so while we can flag all of these as not yet fully vetted, I think if we find like a confirmed hard red on any of these, I think that's something that we have a necessary duty to the community to kind of disclose. If we have something that we would say this is like definitely the case, that this is like there's something flawed in the model of this that we see, everybody should be aware of that, and we should have sort of a clear policy on, you know, if they can disprove that, we'll change our thoughts. But I think that would be far more important to get out in a timely fashion than any sort of a green light.
Yeah, so let me summarize just to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. You would suggest we either don't put out a red, yellow, red, green, red, yellow rating yet, or maybe put them as all yellow, but then disclose until we have all the information we need, but do disclose the answers that we view as red, and try to prompt them to get those, you know, change those, you know, effectively make the changes needed to make those answers yellow or green. Is that correct?
Yeah, if not every single answer that's red, then at least ones that we think are material. Like if there's something where you would look at it and say, if it were a friend of mine who was looking to use this service, like this red is something that I would definitely counsel them against using this service at this time. I'm just suggesting that while we're saying like all of these are not fully vetted yet, if there's something like that exists, I think that it would be hard to justify, in my view, not disclosing at least that in a relatively prominent way.
I have a recommendation. Maybe this is a third alternative to this, but I think that having 3 color categories is great. Maybe we should think about not using the color red and maybe using orange. Red is associated with like negativity to the user, so maybe we can do that. I also think that just having a simple disclosure to kind of protect ourselves that says like, hey, like this is a living and breathing ongoing assessment. Just because something is not there today doesn't mean that it won't be there in the future. And our job is to help update the community as to the status of these providers and their infrastructure. We can protect ourselves with some type of disclosure that says this is not set in stone, this is living and breathing. And maybe we don't, just because they don't have their contracts audited yet, using the color red could be pervasive towards them, and may actually create centralization too. Is another thing that we should think about, right, with the effort. Is if we're putting out this source of truth and we're kind of pushing people, unfortunately we're not trying to, but they will probably get pushed in a certain direction, like we could be responsible for centralization of provider choice as well. So kind of maybe just to summarize, maybe changing the color from red to orange, and then having a disclosure statement that says this is not final, this will be updated on a weekly basis. So tune back in.
All right, Super Fizz, I saw first, and then Kirk.
I would like, so that is a great suggestion. 2 quick points. I don't feel personal liability for these decisions, or as if there's any recourse against well-intentioned members of the community who are trying to, in a good faith effort, support other users. I find it hard to think that we could have any actual liability in that. And secondarily, gosh, it's going to take me a while to form this. So I do not think that we're promoting centralization and I don't expect anyone to consume the stuff that I put out, but I generally tell users that there are 3 bands. The top band is green, and that is solo staking, and please go ahead and stake solo right now. The middle band is yellow, and that's cautionary. And I would say that all of these are in that cautionary band, no matter how high or low they rank, because they are not gold standard solo. They are less than that. And then the red band below this is exchange-based staking, which I do believe is a severe threat of, not a severe threat, it's a real threat of centralization. So I don't, that's just to put in context what I, as a spokesman or a talking head, put out very frequently, and what many people in the community are likely to understand.
Thank you. Kirk?
Yeah, quick, just a question for Colin, and then I have a comment to make after that. Colin, were you thinking about the red moving to a different color? Were you thinking of that in terms of what I'm going to call the column by column rating, or in the overall rating, or both?
Great question. I would say column by column. I would switch it out, or we can that's a good point. One way it could be done is we could leave it red column by column, and then we could have them come out as orange, green, or yellow. But I think if we do decide to change the color, it should potentially be uniform, just so it's less confusing.
Okay, thank you. That was what I wanted as a quick question to clarify what you thought. The comment I would make, and it's just really for all of y'all to think about, is I kind of like the idea of this column by column thing not being identical to the same colors that we're going to show the people at the end. Because I like James' comment. If we would fundamentally, if you went around the room, and I'm recusing from the individual company rating, but if you were to go around the room of all of those on the committee willing to put a thumb up or a thumb down, a color, you kind of want to say red on some if they stink to high heaven, and that's kind of a role we have as a committee, and it can be something that came from. But that's a different thing than I think the column by column thing we're doing right now, where we're saying, we're not even sure. And so I just wonder whether you as a committee really want to use the same identical colors when you're doing this column by column sort of tentative rating, versus what you're going to put out in whatever Michael and we decide to put out at the end. So that's my comment.
Awesome. So it seems like, just to summarize, we got a couple different proposals. Thanks, Colin. Colin had to hop off, but specifically the 2 ones that are slightly contrasting are James and Colin's proposals. Colin's proposal is as follows: change the color from red to orange. Also get it out there with disclaimers and say that we're going to update this on a weekly basis, but prioritize getting the information out there. James suggested, hold on, Philip is trying to join. I just admitted Philip. James suggested that we put out the information that's red on these various different columns, and then as we get more confidence and do our due diligence further and get more research on these answers, we then release a more comprehensive answer set. So educate people on what we think is wrong first, and then get the more comprehensive answers afterwards. And then, in Kirk's side point, which aren't quite as contrasting to these two, but an overarching point would be, let's not go, the column by column rating can be different from the overarching rating. And Kirk, would you believe in getting that overarching rating out as soon as possible, and then updating it over time, or waiting on that?
I think it was James who made the point that if we saw something that was scary, we'd want to put it out quicker. And I agree.